Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Celtic Down Under weekend review. My name is Anthony McGuire, and as always, I'm joined by Paul Massey as we look at Dundee United 0, Celtic 0. Tough day up in Tannadice, windy conditions, illness hitting the squad, 5 changes, all happening. But before we get into that, I need to say we are half an hour earlier than normal, so appreciate that we're just trying to adjust to the Christmas schedule. Managed to finish work a little bit earlier today, which was nice. Still working tomorrow, so no rest for the healthcare worker and the team. But, I will soldier on. I'm a little bit of a cold as well, as you can probably hear in my voice. So apologies if I'm sounding a little bit nasal. But it's been 5 days and I'm kind of over it. But I'm soldiering on, as the cordial ad in Australia says. Paul, how was your weekend, mate? What were you up to?
I finished work on Friday. That was hectic. I was hoping for the usual kind of wind down and running into Christmas, but I was working right up to the death, which was, not ideal, but got it squared away. Mostly off for the next sort of 2 weeks or so. I've got a couple of days, Monday, Tuesday off. We're in Monday. This is what happens when you get into Christmas leave. You don't know what day of the week it is. So I'm working next Monday and Tuesday, but I'll be doing that from home, and then I'm back off because I felt I should probably have some recovery time post the New Year derby. So, and the Australians are very tight-fisted with public holidays at this time of year, and we don't get the second like the Scots do. So we just get the first. So I've taken the second and third as well. Other than that, weekend's been hectic. I can barely remember what we've been doing. My mum arrived, my brother and sister-in-law and nephew arrived on Saturday, and then my mum arrived on Sunday. Watched the game. Obviously, I was a bit disappointed. We were going to go to the club, but by the time she got in, we got organised. We didn't
bullet dodge.
And probably for the best. Also, as you know, and I don't think we'll get much sympathy from the Northern Hemisphere crew for this, but we've battling in an early Christmas heat wave. 42 yesterday, 43 today. Not ideal. It's dipped to a very balmy but relatively cool by comparison, 30 degrees as we hit just after 8 p.m. So luckily we've got a bit of respite coming. I've got full in-laws and extended family coming for Christmas dinner early tomorrow. So we'll be doing a bit of an Aussie barbecue for that. And then I've got just a very small family Christmas on actual Christmas Day, and we'll do a wee bit of a roast for that. Other than that, it's good. It's we're getting into silly season. It's only the 23rd, and I've already feel like I've eaten and drunk way too much already. We've barely got started. So I might have to squeeze a visit to the gym once or twice between now and the turn of the year to undo some of this nonsense.
I've had a pretty quiet weekend. My sister and sister-in-law went down. My wife and sister-in-law went down south for the long weekend, or for a long weekend. So I had a little bit of time to myself just to try and go over this cold. I caught up with a friend for some dinner, which was nice. But apart from that, I laid pretty low. And I thought when you were saying not a lot of sympathy, Paul, I thought you were going to say we actually had an 8 p.m. kickoff for a change, which was a welcome respite from the 11 o'clocks and 12:30s and 1 a.m.s and all the other ridiculous kickoff times we've had in the past couple of months. So it was actually nice to be wide awake, actually watching the game. And then a bit like Monty down here, he's snoring away. It was, I would say, it wasn't exactly the most scintillating game of football. But obviously, we may as well get into it. That's why we're here.
I think if it had been a later kickoff, I'd have definitely nodded off. I think it was only the fact it was 8 p.m. till 10 p.m. that I managed to stay awake because it was.
I'd had a few laggers, but I was still managed to stay awake for it. But I'm just bringing a few of the comments. Just a few of the lads here saying "Hail, hail, boys and girls." Hail, hail, champions. And then Martin Nisbet with a Merry Christmas. F the Huns. Yes, indeed. Paddy McLaughlin with his standard kangaroos and shamrock. Thank you very much for joining us, lads. Again, appreciate the fact that we're half an hour early, but again, we just want to hopefully get a bit of an earlier night. I'm still working tomorrow, and like I said, it's cold, so we will be on at 8 p.m. Western Standard Time next week as well. So we'll be half an hour early, or this time again next week, just for reference, just so you know, and then we'll take it from there. But
midday in
yes, thank you, Paul. Thank you. I need like international date lines on my wall here, so I know like where we are in the world. But I guess the mood music, or the main things going into the game. Obviously, there was the whole furor over, oh, we should add a penalty kick, and for that to rumble on to Thursday, almost Friday, it's quite remarkable, really. Deflection of epic proportions, like Ben Hur couldn't compete with the amount of rhetoric coming out of Castle Mordor with all that rubbish. So anyway, once that finally died down by Friday, word come at the camp was that there was an illness running through Lennox Town. So obviously assuming like flu or colds. Hopefully none of the lads picked it up at the darts during the week, but everyone's entitled to celebrate, won a cup. That's fair enough. But ultimately that led to 5 changes, a couple due to illness and then the others due to injury. So AJ succumbing to a hip injury that has been plaguing him throughout the season. This flares up from time to time. CCV with a cold or illness, Trusty with illness. James Forrest is now about for about 6 weeks with hamstring or thigh or some leg-related injury. And then Nicholas Chun's knee was sore, so that's why he did not participate. And I think the final change was to bring Luke McCowan into the starting lineup, because obviously he missed out in the cup final due to being cup tied with Dundee. Paul, 5 changes. You don't like to see it, particularly away from home on the back of winning a cup. Bit of a, obviously it's that come down from all that jubilation and last minute penalty heroics. Any red flags there, or were you thinking we still had enough in the locker? Because obviously we talked about we've got a big squad and depth, and I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, but we're sort of sitting here going, well, all right, well, Welsh can do a job. Stales has been pretty much started the season at left back, so that's fine. Luke McCown's looked good off the bench and the chances that he's got, so no problems there. All right, Yang on the wing, chance for him. Palmer on the bench, obviously he gets on at some point. But what were your thoughts? Because, obviously not ideal, but, like I said, we've got a squad there for a reason. So take it away.
Yeah. Look, I think I didn't really, my phone was sort of pinging from a few group chats, and I saw a couple of comments about the team, but because I've got my mum from the airport. Between getting my mum from the airport and the game kicking off, there was only about 3 hours, and there was a few things to run around and do and organise and go get dinner and other bits and pieces. So I didn't really get to digest the team until quite close to kickoff, and then it took a little bit of time to hear that the reason why. Obviously, this sickness coming through the squad. I guess when you see 3 changes in the back 4, there's concerns for 2 reasons. One, if we don't expect to be getting attacked heavily, but if we do, then that rustiness is potentially an issue. But a bigger concern is that's where all of our attacking intent begins. It begins from playing out from the back, and ultimately interchanging with the wing with the fullbacks, and then trying to get into the wingers and play out from there. So that was a concern. And Kuhn being missing was a bit of a concern. Kuhn and AJ on the same side, you've completely lost the link up there. And you look at it 2 ways. It's an opportunity for these players, and you really hope they step up. But you think, and you see this wind swirling, you see the sleet coming in, you hear that it's 3 degrees and feeling like -4.
The blankets from the bench. So.
You see some tucking themselves in with blankets on the bench, and you go, well, it's probably going to be a long day. So, yeah, it was kind of set, like pre-game, in the run-up to the game, when I assumed we'd had a reasonably full-strength squad to pick from, I had no concerns. I thought we'd go up there, we'd keep the bandwagon rolling, we'd win by a couple of goals, and job done and back down the road. But once I saw that squad, and not just the squad, but the lack of depth on the bench as well, yeah, you felt like it could be a long day at the office, and that's kind of how it turned out. I would never really felt so concerned that we would potentially, lose the game ahead of the game.
Yeah.
But that said, I said I turned to my mum at 85 minutes and I said it would not be out of, kind of fair, wouldn't be out of the ordinary for one mistake to give it and we could lose and we'd go from a game we should have won to, worst case it's a draw and then suddenly there's a loss. And to be honest, I said that 86, 87 minutes and then it was probably the 91st or 92nd minute that they were defending corners and Ida's clearing ones over the bar and with better delivery and
we were under the pump that last 5 minutes.
That could go anywhere. So yeah, they dug in and then they gave it a tilt right at the death. But overall, we just weren't good enough. We weren't good enough, and we'll get into the nitty gritty of that. If I'm going to lay any kind of blame, if we want to do that, for the poor performance. Players get a lot of blame now and again. I'm going to put a little bit more on the manager at this because you can question selection up front, but you can also question substitutes and tactics. And I think there are multiple areas across both the start and the changes and how the tactics were employed. He gets a lot of kudos for changing in game, and he is great at it. But I really felt he missed a trick because it was pretty obvious where the opportunities lay in this game, the way it was set up, and we didn't play to it at all. And I'm happy to get into the detail further down the line once we get to subs and changes.
Yeah, no, look, I definitely touch on all that. I think I just wanted to pick this comment by Martin Nisbet because that was quite funny. It's a big Sutton ripping into the modern player because when they did the pan to the players on the bench, the blankets, he was going, "Oh, the modern player." But mistake if I'm wrong, but Chris Sutton always used to wear long sleeves and gloves, did he not? Like, was he was quite. I think Chris has like a really rosy-coloured glass image of his own physique on the park compared to because like when a player mistouches it or hits it over the bar, he's like, "Oh, he should have done a lot better there." And it's like, big Chris, I'm sure you've probably styled a few in your time as well. Like, yeah, I feel like he can be a little bit hypercritical at times, but I know he says it tongue in cheek and he's Celtic through. But it's funny. It's just an observation. My old man said that he is right. He can be quite scathing for no apparent reason. Yeah, well, Paul, I agree. I mean, obviously, 5 changes is not ideal. I think you usually sort of say 3 changes is about as much as you probably want to make to freshen up a squad, particularly given how Celtic rely on our fullbacks to sort of give us that link up with our wide players. So you've got Ralston and Yang, basically a new combination that's hardly played all season, basically because we haven't had any injuries or very few injuries. So that's a blessing and a curse because obviously it means you're playing pretty much the same starting lineup every week, so you're consistent. But then when you do get injuries or people dropping out, then you've got players who are basically having no game time. So Palmer came off the bench, hardly any game time. That's Yang somehow racked up 43 appearances for Celtic, but I dare say, got to be the vast majority of those are coming off the bench. But, it's not like he's not had games for Celtic. Like, he has, we say that, he's young, he's 22. So, like, age-wise, yes, inexperienced. But he's still, for 43 appearances for Celtic, 1 goal and 3 assists. Not the best statistics. I know, all right, probably break that down by minute because I think by appearance is probably not fair, but Palmer, similar number of appearances, 10 goals and a few more assists. So, like, they're probably more along the sort of numbers that you would be hoping for, looking for. But, that was, for me, our biggest weakness was the fact that Dundee United blocked up the middle. So after 20 minutes, they put the pitch map up and showed you where all the Dundee United players were. And basically, it was like a spine that then sort of fanned out around the box. So basically blocking up McGregor, McCowan, Hatate, your creative force. So you would think, in theory, that the idea would be get the ball out wide quickly, get it to the byline and cut it in and bring Kyogo into the game. But I think we did that once. Yang did put that one ball across where there was no takers and he should have cut it back and he should have done better. But, like, again, it still opened up Dundee United and had the defenders running back towards the goal. But we didn't do anywhere near enough of that. Maeda first half was very patchy. He couldn't really get on a run. I thought Ryan Strain did a good job, sort of marking him. And then the one time that Maeda did get away, Strain handballed it and gave away a yellow card in the first half. So for me, I'm then thinking, well, why are we not targeting him? He's on a yellow card. Maeda just needs to keep trying to skip past him. All right, if he gives the ball away, who cares? Like, just try and draw another foul and he's off the park. Because like he picked up a soft yellow early in the game. So again, that comes back to you say about tactics, like being a bit smarter about it. Because in a day like that, it was always going to be one goal because after the first 20 minutes, Celtic, their usual, passing the ball from side to side, Stales to Welsh, out to the fullback, back for the fullback in the centre half, cross to the centre half, out to the fullback. And that, I haven't looked at the stats, but if Stales and Welsh don't have the biggest number of passes in the team, I'd be amazed. But one of my observations that I found was that Welsh in particular, and I know some people were really praising him, and I know, again, he's come out the cold in the sense that he's hardly played, but over-hitting passes, so like hitting them, like really drilling them into people, like unnecessarily. And then when the ball's getting played out wide to the fullbacks, every time Taylor and Ralston, it was always getting played behind them. So they're always having to sort of wait for the ball to come. And they're the sort of ones that you do want to fizz in, but they were the ones that weren't going there with enough weight. So it was really, for me, it was just that was one of our biggest problems. And then it all just snowballs from there because you've then got the fullback picking the ball up when Dundee United have had a chance to set. And then your winger is then marked or two times. So there's two players on him, and then he has no space. So when every time Maeda got the ball or Yang got the ball, all they did was pass it back, and then we went back around and did the same thing again. And we did that pretty much for most of the first half. And the sad thing is, I think the best chance of the first half, if not the game, was the one where Maeda flicks it into Hatate, and Hatate should have spread it to Kyogo. And if that chance came a bit later in the game, I think he would have done. But the fact that it was early doors, Hatate went, no, I'm ready to back myself here. I'm ready to strike this. Hits it wide. Obviously doesn't force the save from the keeper. Unlucky, but Kyogo's wide open. And all right, and we're not talking about Kyogo because, is he off the boil? He had, I counted 3 chances in that game that he had, and he stuffed at all 3 of them. So it's no guarantee that he restored that if Hatate had squared it to him. But I feel that, particularly in the first half, if not nearly the whole game, that was, for me, the most cleanest chance because that was the one time where Dundee United weren't swarming around the ball. Because you watch them every other time that a Celtic player in the box picked the ball up, there was 2 defenders on them every time. That one instance, Hatate actually had a bit of space to look up, chose to shoot, but too easily squared it. And for me, that was like the first real breakthrough chance. It was a good bit of interplay. And there were a few other chances, and I'm going to come to you in a sec, Paul, but Brendan Rodgers did say in his post-match that we didn't work the keeper enough. Like 3 shots on target, 9 off target. And that's the thing. We didn't, our shots went wide, went by the post. Yes, have a shot, absolutely, but got to make the keeper make a save. And the swirling conditions like that, if he mishandles one, then you're always in a chance with Kyogo or Maeda or someone running in and scoring. So, what was your thoughts on the sort of first half, Paul? I know there's other chances, so talk us through what you saw and anything else that you want to comment on. And while you do that, I'm going to have a look through these comments and see if we can pull them into the conversation.
Oh yeah, going back to some stats, total shots for the match 17, 3 on target, 9 off target, 5 blocked, 8 from outside the box, which some of the better ones were from outside the box. The ones inside the box were, as you say, kind of scuffed or badly executed. I just think first half we just huffed and puffed. Not a lot of composure. As you said, didn't work the goalkeeper. The other key chances I can sort of think of in the first half, I think McCowan had a couple of attempts again from outside the box and didn't really get a hold of them. To your point about kind of the heat map of United, I think it even got worse second half, but the space was out wide. That was where the space was, if there was any, because yet they would just try to block up the midfield. It was crying out for fullbacks to be bombing past wingers moving into the space inside, moving defenders around. Because it's all well and good setting up a low block and clogging up the middle. But if no one tries to move those players, it's really easy to defend against. And that's what happened. People stayed in their positions in the attacking third. And we took, as well as the passing being not as clean as you'd want, again, centre-backs wanted 2-3 touches before they get it out from under their feet and move it. Just allowed them to get completely set, as you said. too slow, too pedestrian. It led to the horseshoe of hell again. Like, just round and round we go. And when we're at our, when we're going through our worst spells, that's what it looks like. It looks like this pedestrian horseshoe back and forth around the pitch, as you say. But then ultimately nothing much changes with the tactics. It just looks terrible when it's not executed properly, when there's not movement and we aren't zipping passes in 1 and 2 touch. It's a point I thought as well. We'll come to that in a bit. Then it just gets slow and looks ponderous. Whereas, and it doesn't help that one fullback's inverting all the time and adding extra bodies in an area that's already clogged up. I like when Taylor inverts when we're a man short or we need a man to overload. We didn't need an extra man in there. There was no space as it was. It was crying out for Alex Valle or for Taylor to play a more traditional role. Taylor can get round the outside. He got good delivery in the box. This is the thing that annoys me, and I had a chat with a couple of people on Blue Sky after the game. They made the point that we were poor because our wingers were so poor. Now you can take that to some degree. We were poor out wide, but we've got 2 fullbacks on the pitch. One of Ralston's biggest strengths is his quality of delivery into the box. He can hit good crosses in, and he can get around the outside and get a good delivery in. Taylor, if he wants to get outside, can hit nice crosses in. Sometimes does it from a bit deeper, but he can absolutely provide good delivery. He's had quite a few assists already this season. Neither got into positions until late in the game that were that caused any kind of danger. We didn't move them around. Like if the fullbacks are getting high, the wingers can drop in. They can move. They can interchange with the central players, and defenders and defensive midfielders then have to second guess and pass around. It was crying out for Alex Valle, at least as a substitute. Some of the substitutions were a bit strange from my point of view. Not just who was selected, but also when they were when they entered into the game, and also how they were then used once they got in. We'll get into it in the second half, but that's when I think Rodgers has got issues tactically, because I don't think he used the substitutes well. I don't think he actually put the best choices on, and once they were on, he wasn't utilising them to their strengths either.
Yeah, no, there's a few points there, Paul, pick up on. So first half, obviously the Hatate chance. Luke McCowan, interesting one, because you see he had a lot of energy and he was trying to pick the ball up in sort of right positions. But I say to Dad, like, he was almost trying too hard, like, because Dad says he knows he's ready to get dragged because he's the likely substitute, because he's not ready to take Cal McGregor off, and he obviously thinks he favours Hatate over McCowan. But I think if he just took a breath and just sort of I just kind of felt he was trying to be Eddie everywhere, but by doing that, he just was just sort of, he got on the road to Yang a couple of times, and he's trying to communicate what he wants to do, and it was just all a bit disjointed. And again, that comes from,
and he was rushing his touches, a few missed controls, missed passes. Maybe because he's ex-Dundee and he's up against the old rivals and wanting to come back and prove himself that he should be at that level. Various psychological stuff playing into that. But I agree with you. I think he tried to force the issue. It was almost like
there was that one we did touch. There was that one where you didn't play with McGregor, and I think that ended up with a shot, and that again didn't test the keeper. But there was 1 or 2 wee moments that he had. He picked one up, and again his shot went wide as well. And he again cursed himself, should done better. But again, they go down as your 9 shots off target sort of thing. But for me, he was, like I said, he was buzzing around. He was busy. He was almost giving like a Ryan Christie-like performance, if you know, to a certain extent, very busy and all over the place, but not necessarily what you needed on that day. And then, Yang was just not at the races. He just didn't really show anything, give anything. Like I said, that one time he did manage to get his head up and he put the ball across, and there's not even remotely close to getting on the end of it. And and like you say, I don't think
he really looked that. Like, he just played the ball into an area, and it's a dangerous area. Like, you'd like him to get his head up and try and pick a man out, But equally, you want your attacking players to be busting a gut, trying to that corridor along the 6-yard box. You want attacking players gambling that, but it didn't really happen for him. He's such a frustrating player, as is Palmer, and we'll get onto that. You know, Yang, he has a cameo here and there, and he looks electric, and you think, oh, he just needs to put it all together, and there's a player there, and then inevitably that's usually when he gets a short cameo off the bench. Then he gets his opportunity, and he huffs and puffs, but doesn't really produce it. The conditions were poor, but just too many players off the pace. And Mark Nisbet makes an absolutely spot on comment. David Dickinson was in the way 5-6 times across the game. I might be even underplaying
his positioning is absolutely dreadful. I mean, obviously, it'd be great to have Sean on. Like, he has done referee training, but for me, his positioning is garbage. Like, the number of times that he gets in the road of Celtic's play. I made the comment in the group chat. I say, like, he's had more touches than Yang, or his touches been better than Yang, because, like, he just every time he's like Dundee's 12th defender. So no, really poor performance from him. I mean, not that the game had any real major flashpoints or any, there was not really any major decisions or anything that you had to sort of officiate on, but it was just something that just seemed to keep happening over and over again. That's like, and it happens with him every time he referees. He gets in the roads with Celtic every time. So his position in there could be better. So I will leave that one there, I think. So halftime, because I mean it's nothing each. You're thinking, all right, Brendan Rodgers rocket, maybe a substitution. Bring a Valle on. Maeda wasn't playing terribly with Yang. You could drag Yang at halftime, no problem. Again, you're sort of in that situation. Well, who do you put on? All right, you could bring Ida on, put Kyogo out wide, switch Maeda to the other wing. That's an option. Obviously, you've got Palm on the bench. Obviously, he does eventually come on. And the other thing is you've got Arnie Engels and Paulo Bernardo, who you're thinking, well, they're usually your starting midfielders. They're both on the bench. A bit of extra drive, maybe it's a little bit extra quality. Just somebody do something a little bit different. But Bernardo doesn't come on to the 60th minute. Engels was later again. He was... I can't remember.
Bernardo 77th minute, Arnie Engels 86th minute.
Oh, right, okay, sorry. My apologies. There you go.
And that was, and to your dad's point earlier on, my assumption when they were left as late as that is maybe they were both a bit under the weather with this flu bug or sickness or whatever it was, but not quite as bad as the guys who didn't make the squad entirely, because the midfield huffed and puffed, but didn't really get any change out of United. McCowan took up reasonably good positions, but as you say, he then got entangled with other people. His touch was off. It just wasn't his day. And Hatate, as he often does, he had a few nice forward passes and a couple of dangerous moments, but equally he didn't have his best day either. Has been the case probably too often in recent weeks. So I was screaming out for both of those guys earlier, but absolutely Engels, a guy like Engels who's just got that little bit of extra class. He's got a brilliant engine. He can run past players, as we saw in the cup final. And sure enough, it was him that nearly won us it late on. And by the time he gets there, he's only really in a position to sort of have a stab at it, and the keeper does okay. But yeah, we showed more intent in the 5 or 6 minutes he was on the pitch than we did in most of the rest of the game. So you can only assume that he was. If he was 100%, it's a scandal that he was held back until the 86th minute, because it's not like the midfield was particularly dynamic, and I just think he gives you something different. And then, well, we're into substitutes, so let's talk about the others.
I have an issue, Paul, when we go with Ida and Kyogo, because I don't think as a team we know what we're doing when we resort to playing supposedly two up front. It's not really two up front. It's Ida, and then Kyogo's meant to be sort of playing off him more, as far as I can tell by what you see. But I don't know. It's like we don't practice that enough, or it just seems like it's always a bit last ditch, and it's like, oh, here it's like a bit of a Hail Mary, like let's see what happens sort of thing. And I don't know, because we don't play that formation, we're not used to it. But I think there's definitely a cause sometimes to play with two up front when you play against teams that are going to sit in and offer nothing attacking wise. Because let's face it, Dundee United offered nothing. Like, they had one fast break that Scales, in fairness, actually defended really, really well. He was going to dive in, and he's like, no, I'm actually going to block the pass, which he did. And then that allowed Ralston to get back in, and then we shut it down. And that was actually very clever defending. I thought Scales defensively was sound. Like, he won a lot of headers, swirling ball. He got his head on everything. I really couldn't sort of fault him. I mean, it'd be nice if he got his napper on the end of one to score a goal at the other end. That would be brilliant. But
deliveries were good again, though.
Well, yeah, and again, you put certain a little bit of that down to the conditions. Yeah, but again, could have been better delivery. But sorry, I digress. But back to the substitutes. Yeah, obviously Ida comes on, and you're basically playing with like 1+1, or whatever way you want to look at it. And then the other obviously changes to bring Palmer on and push Maeda onto his unfavoured right hand side. First 5 minutes, Palmer I thought looked good. Like, beats a couple of men. I'm going, okay, like, he's showing something. He won the ball back. I went, oh, maybe. And then after that first 5 minutes, nothing. Just didn't want to beat the man. Just basically passed it back. And I went, we just had that for the first 65 minutes. Like, and you're just basically doing the exact same thing that the guy who you're replacing. So, like, I don't know what they're saying on the bench, but like, surely you'd be saying, don't do that. Get to the byline and get some crosses in. But all he did was the same as what Yang was doing, which is playing it safe. And I'm still like, and I get it. Greg Taylor was MIA. He was playing a different game. He was centre mid, inside left. He was anywhere but a left back or an overlapping left back. So, I have a little bit of sympathy for the winger on the left hand side sometimes, because they can be isolated. But yeah, goodness me, we were just the substitutes really didn't have much of an impact. I mean, Ida had that one chance early, and again, I think had that come to him 10-15 minutes in, I think he'd have done better. But I think because it came to him literally his first touch or the first passage of his play coming off the bench, it's probably just a wee bit cold sort of thing. But yeah, I feel we're a little bit disjointed. And as I said, for me, it's like, well, surely you bring your best players on, and your best two players are Bernardo and Engels, and they're both under the blanket giving each other a hug. Yeah, and this is where your criticism of Rodgers, in this instance, I think it's fair.
So there's multiple though. Like, Palmer frustrates because he got the byline twice, and then he never tried to do it again. He never even tried to do it again. He just cut inside, passed it off. I think there's an argument for occasionally getting I know we love having a player cutting in on their better foot, but in a game like that where it's all busy in the middle, get him on his natural side. Then he's getting round the outside. He's got good delivery. He's got a good right foot. Let him get on the outside. Let him get fizz balls in. The other thing tactically that I was absolutely, I could not believe we were doing it is Ida came on, and you say sort of Ida plays up, and then Piogo plays sort of more off him. I feel like Ida spent so for me, a player like Ida, big strong guy, knows where the goal is, first time finisher. He wants to be stood between the posts in the 18-yard box, waiting for service. Especially when it's that kind of game, swirling wind, blah blah blah, backs to the wall, everybody's there. Get him between the posts. Something will drop to him, and he's a good first time finisher. There's a pretty good chance he scores. He was out on both wings. He was dropping deep. He spent most of his time, it felt like, in that half hour outside of the penalty box entirely, or certainly outside those sort of tram lines of the goalpost. It's like, what are we doing? We never got balls in the air to him. We never utilised his physique. It's just play to people's strengths. Give them a chance. It's so, like, it sounds so basic, but like, the space is out wide. Use it. Get people out there. Get overlaps. Overload that area. Move people around. Get defenders second guessing. You've got a big quality striker that can finish with one touch. Get service into him. It was just really, really poor. You've got two international midfielders that are at 21. Get them on the pitch. You've got a Barcelona prodigy who's brilliant going on the outside and plays forward passes, and he's got great technique. He's not even on the pitch.
Yeah, fun.
Like, it's hard. Like, it's hard for me to sit. It's hard for me to sit here and go, I know more than Brendan Rodgers. Clearly, I don't. So there must be something else in there with that. But for a guy who's brilliant at in-game management, I just felt like the tactics that it was just like, it felt like, I'll throw another one on, hopefully, at this, throw enough shit at the wall, some of it might stick. I just didn't feel like we were very composed and had any real game plan in that second half, other than just throw more on and get more possession, and hopefully something will happen.
It felt a bit Neil Lennon-like, and I'm not being too disparaging to Neil here, but like it's just like for like substitutions, just like, oh yeah, just throw another man up and just we'll see what happens. And I just think I'd have put value on at left wing. He could easily have like just bombed up and down that line and just given you that width that we so desperately needed. And again, I'll stress the point again, Ryan Strain was on a yellow card after 25 minutes. So like could have like drawn another foul at him at some point. And in fairness, I thought he had quite a good game. Like he did, and he obviously cancelled Palmer after that first 5 minutes. Like Palmer didn't really much to sniff after that. So fair play. And then my dad makes a point here, and he is right. Probably the best chance the second half, if not the game, is the one that Ida does square it to Kyogo. And Kyogo goes to hit it with his left foot. And then I think he's like, actually, I'm going to hit with my right foot. And then it's just like basically does a wee shimmy over the ball and nothing happens. But, the wee man is definitely 6 goals in the league at the moment. 6 in all competitions or 6 in the league? Should have checked that beforehand. But it's 6. 6 is the number it's getting banded about. So, it's not the best returns from him as a Celtic striker. Is he a little bit off the ball, Paul? I think there's a little bit of revisionism here as well, because the one thing I always remember Kyogo is even when he came in under Ange would give Kyogo 6 or 7 gilt-edged chances, and at best he'd score 3. At best. Now with Rodgers, he's maybe only getting 2 or 3 chances, and then he stuffs them, and we're going, oh well, he's off the ball or whatever. But he's kind of always been that striker. He's never been the most clinical. He'll score you some wonderful goals, and if you put it in that 6-yard box, more often than not, it's in the back of the net. But he does have history of slaffing some, and a bit like Maeda. I mean, Maeda can be obviously that goal he scored in the cup final was scintillating. It was amazing, but we've seen him hit them in Rosette as well. So again, a bit like Maeda in certain instances, he's a wee bit of the diamond in the rough. Like you got to take the good, the polish with the smooth, good with the bad, whatever you want to say. But are we just again just hark back to we're not playing to his strengths, and he's just not that clinical a striker, and we just have to accept that that's the case, or I don't know. There seems a little bit of discourse on social media at the moment, and
it's a fair comment. But that said, you're right. When under Ange, he create a lot of chances and he would miss a few. But I feel like he's snatching and missing at ones that typically he would have been scoring when he was in that run for, when he had more opportunity. Like the one in the first half where it comes across the 6-yard box and he's leaning back and he just doesn't really. He almost fresh airs it. He gets a tiny scuff of it and sort of moves it. But in full confidence and full form, that's lashed into the top corner. The one, the Ida flick to put him in is class, but that was one of the fewer occasions he was, in the middle of the goal. But yeah, we're not creating enough, and certainly in recent weeks we're not creating enough, and therefore he's going to suffer. Obviously, there's I'm sure Mahesh knows his stats better than we do. 85 assists and goals. 0.85 assists and goals this season per game, presumably.
Yeah. Compared to 0.65 last season.
At this point in the season? If it is at this point in the season? Or is that's the whole season?
Yeah, that's a good point.
But we weren't great last season, right? For big chunks of last season, we weren't great. We've been a lot better as a team this year. But yeah.
But would you say that? Sorry, Paul. But would you say that this result's been coming? Because since we had a couple of good games in Europe, and then after probably the Leipzig game, I'd say we kind of
Leipzig
putting full performances together.
Yeah, basically Aberdeen and Leipzig. I think it was Aberdeen and then Leipzig, or vice versa, and they're probably our two best performances of the season. And then, well, as I say, our worst part of the season was early last year, and then we finally got our act together in sort of February. But I appreciate the stats, and it's a valid point. Where were we?
Sorry, what I was saying, Paul, was that
got distracted by the stats.
No, sorry, it's okay.
Our form. Sorry. So Leipzig, Aberdeen, we were absolutely scintillating. But we were that was the very start of having to play 2 games a week, and then you come into a really heavy period where you're playing, 2-3 games every 7, 8, 9 days, and it obviously at that point there's some fatigue gonna come in. You need to rotate the squad a bit. You start to get niggly injuries. Weather starts to turn.
I was going to say, I think the weather affects us a lot more than a lot of other teams.
Well, you try to get the ball on the deck and shift it quickly, and you need underfoot conditions, etc., etc. It's not a surprise that we dip in form in late November, December, and it starts to pick up again February, March when pitches start to get better. But we need to find a way. We need to find a way to deal with that, and so to some degree, yeah. At the end of the day, it's not the end of the world. It's another draw. It's only the second draw in the league campaign, and still no defeats. We are going to drop points. We've got a cushion, and a day like that when we're ravaged, the squad's ravaged, we're disjointed. There's lots of combinations across the pitch that haven't played a lot of football at all altogether. It's one of those you could just as easily, it wouldn't have been a surprise with that squad if somehow we'd had a worse day at the office and got beaten. And maybe this time last year we probably would have got beaten on that kind of day. So I think it's absolutely the kind of thing that can happen at this time of season, particularly in this festive period when the games come thick and fast. I guess the slight concern is it's only the second out of a group of maybe 10 matches that lead into the Young Boys game, which is now arguably the biggest game of the season. Well, it probably is, right? That game's going to define whether we move forward.
It is.
So, yeah. I think there's 8 games now. Before then, it was 10 originally. We're 2 down. And yeah, they're coming thick and fast. I think we've got Boxing Day then the 29th, then the 2nd. 3 massive games to come. And so you hope that these illnesses are relatively short. You hope that because AJ's got his hip injury, which I think is an extension from 2 weeks ago. And then obviously, we don't know exactly what's going on with Kuhn. I think Rodgers was asked what he thought, and he sort of said, well, he hopes it's not too serious, but we don't really know at this point, which is a little bit ominous. Kuhn's probably been our best player in terms of contribution, goals and assists. If he was to be out of the team for an extended period, it would be a bit of a concern. But we've talked a bit for a while that we've had a really good run to this point with literally nearly everybody's been fit, and it was going to come. So it is how we deal with it, and probably leads us nicely into what we said we were going to have a little chat about if we got the opportunity, was how does this shape us up for January? What additions do we need? And how do we think that should look?
Six games in 21 days, starting on Boxing Day. That's some run of fixtures. Yeah. Celtic Motherwell, Celtic St Johnstone, Huns Celtic, Celtic St Mirren, Celtic Dundee United. Admittedly, 4. What was that? That's 1, 2, 4 of the first 5 are at home, so that's something.
That's good.
And then we've got 2 away games. We've got Ross County away and then Dundee away. And then we've got Killie in the Cup at home. That's a lot of football to be played in the next 21 days. So you're right. You're kind of hoping that this illness passes through the squad and goes away. You're hoping that AJ will just be managed. And obviously, Kuhn's not too far away because obviously at the moment we're just obviously didn't want to take the risk, which is fair enough. But H makes this point. The AJ, Kuhn and McCowan are our biggest contributors, which is amazing considering McCowan has hardly played. But AJ and Kuhn down that right-hand side, that combination is very hard to replicate with substitute players or players that are squad players. Now, Ralston's capable, but he didn't show it on the weekend. Like his ability, he never bombed on once. And one of his biggest strengths is getting to that byline and doing that wee chippy cross that he does. And it causes defenders all sorts of problems. But for whatever reason, he either wasn't doing it, couldn't do it, wasn't able to do it, not sure. But it's not like he was under a lot of offensive pressure from Dundee United because he had all the time in the world every time he got the ball, really. It was almost a problem where he had too much time because they basically sat off until 10 yards inside their own half before there was any pressure.
I guess their main danger was Middleton, who was coming down that side. Yeah. So he maybe had,
and he was trying like a bear.
Of course.
So Martin Nisbet says proof that we need improvement on the left. Well, I'd argue we probably need improvement on the right wing as well if Kuhn's not available. So with that in mind,
here we go.
I've got I thought I had a Santa hat, but I don't. So I've got my elf's hat. So I'm a wee elf, and I'm having a wee chat to Brendan Rodgers and saying, Brendan, what do you want for Christmas? How are you going to strengthen the squad to bring this championship home again and hopefully beat Young Boys and have a wee run in the Champions League? That would be, dreamlike stuff. But so Paul, checkbook's open. Peter Law's been knocked out by, he's gotten him drunk. He's opened up the checkbook. What are you spending your money on?
He's been on Santa Sherry, has he? Okay. What are we looking for?
Bucky.
We're looking for a winger a winger or attacking player that can play across probably both wings and drop into the middle as well. Because obviously now Forrest's injured, Jan clearly not up to it, Palmer not up to it. Maeda and Kuhn are it, really, at the minute. And the fact that Forrest is sort of having a bit of an Indian summer at 33 when, we thought he was probably past it, kind of shows how light we are in that area. So definitely at least one winger. There's an argument for 2 because I agree with Martin Nisbet. Palmas definitely needs to be going. He's had more than enough chances. The one thing this game showed us is there's a lot of squad players, when given an opportunity, instead of rising to the occasion, really grabbing it by the scruff of the neck and saying, I deserve to be here and I'm worthy of battling for a place in the squad. They've just looked out of their depth. So, there's an argument for saying put Yang out on loan, get him game time, see if he can cut it, make or break. Palma thinks busted flush. He doesn't fit our system. I know his stats are great, but stats are great. They show a lot. They hide a lot as well. Is it a mini skirt? Is that the comparison about stats? A bit like a mini skirt. Show you a lot, but not what you really want to see. But I think he's done. The only way he'll still be at the club at the end of the window is if we've still got injuries and we haven't been able to get additional players in those positions. I think it's really important, not just for this campaign that we do, but we need to get players in early because we're going to have at least one qualifier, probably one qualifier if we win the league. We'll assume we're going to win the league. So it's imperative that we get players in because some will leave. And on that basis, you want to understand who might be going or who's the high chance of going. You probably want their replacement in January as well if you can manage it. Yeah. In terms of other players, I think Navrojki will go. So there's an argument for and Welsh might go as well. So there's an argument for another centre back.
Is Lagerbielke on loan or is he gone?
He was, I think, on loan. Again, I don't think he's been getting games, so he might end up being back. I think it's a season-long loan though, so he's that's another problem in the summer. Beyond that, who knows? Another an out-and-out central defensive midfielder for me would be great, and we need one for the long term, because Carl shouldn't be playing as many games as exactly this. He shouldn't be playing as many games. If we can get Jota back, amazing. Obviously, he wants to leave Rennes. Who knows? His wages will be ridiculous, but he's made a lot of money in the last 18 months, so you never know.
He's banked some Saudi coins, so
I'm pretty sure that he can't come back for another 6 months to the UK because of the whole tax rules. So I don't think we will see him back. Bernabeu, we should be selling.
Cash in on that one. Cash in on that one while his stock is high. I agree.
Well, what is he? What do you win? Win play defender of the year in Brazil?
In the Brazilian League? Like Bitcoin. He's like Bitcoin at the moment. You cash that shit in.
Yes, sell it.
Take your money and run. Yeah, no, that definitely.
So I think there'll be
no investment advice in this podcast either. By the way, I'm
hoping there'll be a bit of turnover. The more that turn and leave, go out the door, the more I want to see coming in. But I want the overall level, the quality to rise. It looks like Tierney has been certainly that we want him. I've got my major reservations about that move. I think if you're signing Kieran Tierney, Greg Taylor's definitely for the off. So I don't think you need one left back. You need two, because he's not going to play much. If you get 20 games out of season, you've done well. I think he's averaged. I'm being a little bit harsh. I think he's averaged 30 games a season for the last 5 seasons, not including this one, 5.5 seasons. But the majority of them came not in the last 18 months or 2 years or so.
How old is Kieran Tierney now?
He's 27. I think he'll be 28 next birthday. So
I guess the problem is he plays so many games at such a young age that it's just probably knackered.
Well, I've said it multiple times. We ruined him. We didn't look after that young player. We filled him full of cortisol. We pushed him back out. And don't get me wrong, he'll have wanted to go out, but you got a duty of care to look after a young player. And because he was as good as he was at such a young age,
we flogged him.
And then we got a 25 million fee for him. Happy days. But now if you're going to bring him back, and it's a great redemption arc if he comes back and he gets games, but I think he played 25. He had 25 appearances for Real Sociedad when he was out there on loan, and they weren't all starts. Sorry. And we play 55, 60 games a season. So
it's not even half a season.
Exactly. So unless it's on a pay-as-you-play contract or something like that, I worked out he's probably made about 30 million from his contract.
Well, I was trying to say that. I'm sure after the whole thing with our illustrious centre midfielder who never kicked the ball, his name has escaped me. James McCarthy. I'm sure after the James McCarthy saga, if we're signing any player with these sorts of injury niggles, then it's going to be you get a base rate, and then it's per performance, surely. Otherwise, he's Celtic through and through. I think it's.
If you're making a decision with your heart, if everybody wants him, I loved him as a player. If the player we had back then was coming back, I'd fly from Australia, I'd bring him up from London myself. But that's not the player we're getting, and that's the issue. I think. I think it's low.
I think it's low risk. If we're not paying a transfer fee and he's willing to take a cut in his wages, which you'll have to anyway, but as long as the wages are reasonable, then what's the risk? Because I don't know what's wrong with Greg Taylor, because he has heard that Kieran Tierney's coming back, or he's holding up for more money. I don't know, but Greg Taylor divides opinion, and sometimes he's amazing and he's that extra midfielder, and that's what we need. But then there's times like on Sunday when you just need a left back. You need somebody to go up and down the line and cause the overloads out wide where there was space, and he just didn't do it the whole game, we very frequently. And I'm not blaming Greg Taylor for the fact that we drew the game. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that he has these detractors. And, let's not forget the cup final last week. He was Jekyll and Hyde there as well. I don't know. I wouldn't mind having a left back that's a bit taller and a bit stronger, because it's definitely an area that we get targeted in Europe. We seem to get hit down our left hand side a lot, and yeah, I don't know. I like I said, I think from a risk point of view, I think more to gain than to lose. But I can understand where you're coming from, Paul. I can understand that. So.
I said so. Here's my view on it. If you're either locking in Alex Valle or another young left back, a bit like when we brought in Kasper Schmeichel and we also secured Sinisalo at the same time, you go, well, you've got Schmeichel for 1 or 2 years and you've got this kid who can learn from underneath him and hopefully step up and make the grade. If we're doing that, then it looks like forward thinking it's useful. Kieran Tierney might play 25, 30 games a season. And then, if you're bringing up somebody that's a young player that signs, and if they're going to be Tierney's interchange, they must be pretty confident they're going to get games, right? Like they're going to get games. So if that's the strategy, fair enough. If the wages aren't ludicrous, fair enough. A brilliant player to have in the dressing room. But if it's just hoping that you can somehow get 40, 50 games out of a season, ludicrous stuff. It's not going to happen.
I mean, look, I'll put it out there. I'd rather see Celtic sign Valle. If we could get Valle on a 5-year deal and develop him into our main left back, that would be my preferred option. And then if Kieran Tierney wants to not play second fiddle, but be backup, whatever, then that's fine. Or you need 2 players for a position. But I don't think Valle will is a start. I don't think he'll come to Celtic full time. I think he's here for a year and then he's off ski. But it'd be nice. But he's shown enough. I would be willing to. A bit like Bernardo in his loan spell. I've been impressed. I think there's enough there. The only thing on him is he's a bit small, but
yeah, I agree. But he's not that small. He's 5'11", right?
Is he? Okay.
Yeah. That's the thing. He looks a bit slight because he comes from that technical background, but that's gym work, right? I think.
You can work on that. Yeah.
Absolutely. I just think we should be trying to find a young left back that we can just the usual bring up, hit the team for 2 or 3 years and then sell for a profit. And there must be one kicking around somebody's youth system.
You would think maybe we should talk to Benfica and see what they've got in their books. It's not let done yet. Paul, somehow we're nearly at an hour, so that's rocketed along, as it always does. We may as well do a man of the match. Bit of a tough one this week. I'm going to be brutally honest. Part of me wants to say the wind. Part of me wants to say David Dickinson, but I'm going to go with Liam Styles. I thought he didn't really put a foot wrong, and I thought defensively, anything he had to deal with, they slapped the ball long, and he dealt with that all day long, and he had to marshal a makeshift backline. So I think he did well. So for me, man of the match, but slim pickings because obviously 0-0 draw. Team didn't play terribly well. Consistently well, we should say. For me, man of the match.
Yeah, I'll agree with you, grudgingly, just because there isn't really another candidate of any real regard.
I went through the whole...
Nearly all of them.
In themselves. I mean, if Arnie Engels had scored that goal at the end, it'd been Arnie Engels, but he didn't. Anyway. So, well done, Liam. Good one, mate. And you were obviously on the piss during the week at the darts, so obviously that doesn't affect you, so that's good to know. All right, Paul, Christmas recommendations, mate. What have you got for us in the lead up to we're in the silly season, but to Christmas Day, which is in 2 days' time?
Yeah, so nothing particularly Christmassy.
Didn't have to be.
But album recommendation. So I stumbled upon this in the last week or so. It must be last week or so because it wasn't last week. So band I really love, one from my youth, Shed 7. It's the kind of stuff that makes you feel old. So Shed 7's debut album, which was Change Giver, was 30 years old this year. It came out in 94.
Aren't we like halfway to World War II when you start talking about like 30 years or whatever? Like
yeah. So that you go back to if you go back the other direction, you're at 64. So you're at the early Beatles. So there you go. That's, if you think the Beatles a long time ago, you're like, we were as close to the Beatles then in the 90s as we are to that now. So so Shed 7's debut album, Change Giver, came out in 1994. This year they re-recorded it and called it Changed Giver. So that was see what they did. And they did like a stripped back acoustic version, got some guest vocalists in. It's a bit indulgent, basically. If you enjoyed Shed 7 and you sort of you want to revisit that in a kind of with a different spin, freshly recorded. Rick Whitter's vocals are still sounding great. It's decent. So they've produced 2 albums this year. I mentioned previously a couple of months ago. They did Liquid Gold, which was sort of a greatest hits compilation, but with a full orchestra supporting them. And then they've now re-recorded the debut album. And they're having a bit of a renaissance in their later years as well. They had a new album out a couple of years ago, toured globally. They were in Australia, New Zealand 2 or 3 years ago, and there's rumoured to be more new material coming. So if you were a Shed 7 fan back in the day, check out the re-recorded album for the 30-year anniversary.
I haven't got a recommendation per se, but it was my 40th a few weeks ago, and when we get the family together, I like to try and do a little musical quiz. And I was scratching my head trying to come up with not a topic, but like a theme. And I'm a Trekkie. I enjoy Star Trek of all flavors, and I come across this woman called the Klingon pop warrior, who sings pop ballads in Klingon. She's fully translated them. And she's actually a singer. So the contest was pick the song, the title and artist from her singing it in Klingon. And you haven't heard songs until you've heard it in the true Klingon. So her name is the Klingon Pop Warrior. A little bit of a joke and a laugh. So if you want to check that out and let me know what you think, by all means. It's been great having you on, Paul. It's been great this year. I had a really good time chatting to you. Obviously, we've got one more in before the end of the year, but it's always a pleasure catching up with you every Monday night to talk about Celtic. Richard was hoping to be on, but he unfortunately is also working hard. So hopefully we will get him on, pin him to a chair, and get him on here soon. Please like the episode on YouTube. It does help other like-minded Celts find us. We are on all the socials. I need to get on Blue Sky. I haven't done it yet. I'll probably make that my mission on my 5 days off that I have got coming up, starting on Christmas Day. I've got one more day of work to get through. So looking forward to getting that done and dusted. We've got Celtic versus Motherwell on Boxing Day, and then we'll be covering the Celtic St Johnstone game on the weekend. So that's a Sunday night game, and we'll be back on Monday discussing primarily that, but I dare say we'll touch on the Motherwell game as well. Mark Nesbitt has stolen my line. Have a Merry Christmas when it comes. Indeed, to you and to everyone that's been contributing this year. I really appreciate it. We'll be obviously back next week and back into 2025 as we see out this league campaign, even if my sleep is taking a denting for it, but we will get there because that's what we do. We are mad Celtic fans. Merry Christmas to you, Paul, and your family. I will I'll definitely see you for the Rangers game in a couple of weeks' time. But enjoy your break, and I'll see you next week. And as per usual, all that's left to say is hail, hail.
Hail, hail, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.